Welcome back to The Explainer. So today we're looking at a pretty fascinating question. How exactly do you take massive, complex constitutional concepts and distill them so effectively that a 10-year-old can apply them under pressure? Well, we came across a curriculum piece called The New Colony, and it's a brilliant case study in how we actually learn civic reasoning. Let's dive right into it. Here's the roadmap for the experiential arc we'll be walking through today. Building the colony, Day 1, which is choosing a government, Day 2, balancing the rules, Day 3, the ultimate test, and wrapping up with grading principled reasoning.
Okay, Part 1. Building the new colony, the setup.
The core premise here is just absolutely fascinating. Imagine this. Instead of just memorizing a list of facts, fifth-grade students are placed directly into the shoes of settlers founding a brand new colony. Across 3 class periods, they are actively making the exact same kind of historical choices that America's founders actually made. They have to weigh different options, debate with their teams, and literally build a society from the ground up, all based on core principles.
And you know what really stands out? The accessibility. This whole deeply structured 3-day mini-mission comes packed with teacher lesson plans, scripted daily playbooks, scaffolded student pages, the whole shebang. And it's packaged for just $19. It's designed as this mini gold standard that educators can easily just drop right into their social studies block.
Now, the underlying philosophy driving every single decision in this simulation is built on something called the patience framework. What does that mean? Well, it teaches students that true civic strength means holding on to your principles, especially, and this is the key part, especially when the easy or popular choice would completely abandon them. Keep that in the back of your mind, because this specific tension sets up literally everything that follows.
Moving on to our second section, Day 1, choosing a government.
Picture yourself in the colony. You have to figure out how this place is actually going to be governed, right? So students have to judge 3 proposed plans against 3 core principles: voice, fairness, and function. Let's break it down. Plan A, where one leader decides everything. Sure, it's fast, but it gives the people 0 voice, and honestly, it just isn't fair. Then there's Plan B. Everyone votes on literally everything. Sounds super fair, right? But imagine getting 200 settlers to agree on what's for dinner. It completely fails the function test.
So I want to challenge you directly for a second. Test your own civic reasoning here. Looking at those 3 requirements, voice, fairness, and function, which system would you pick to ensure your new colony doesn't just survive, but thrives?
Well, if you guessed Plan C, you hit the nail on the head. Plan C, elected representatives, is the only choice that actually checks all 3 boxes. The people elect leaders so they have a voice. No single person rules so it's fair, and a small elected group can actually get things done so it functions. This brilliantly illustrates for a 10-year-old exactly why the United States chose a representative government and how institutions like Congress do this very work today.
All right, that brings us to Section 3, Day 2, balancing the rules.
On Day 2, students are presented with proposed rules for their colony, and they have to evaluate them. And the contrast here is pretty stark. Take a rule like everyone helps build and repair the shared barn. That keeps order, and it's a fair shared duty. But what about a rule that says the leader may jail anyone he dislikes with no trial? I mean, sure, that might technically keep order, but it completely destroys fairness and freedom. The real challenge for the students is recognizing that a rule can keep order but still be wildly unjust if it just tramples all over people's freedoms.
And that brings us to a really vital concept introduced on Day 2, a check on power. The curriculum defines this as a rule that keeps any one person or group from getting too strong. It teaches the kids that a just government absolutely, unequivocally requires limits on its leaders. It's kind of amazing when you connect the dots here. These kids are learning the foundational logic behind the U.S. Bill of Rights and the separation of powers simply by trying to keep their own imaginary colonies safe from a tyrant. Among all the rules proposed to them, there's one specific rule that really stands out. Leaders must be re-elected every 2 years. Students are taught to identify this not just as a standard rule, but as the perfect example of a check on power. Regular elections let the people remove a leader who starts abusing their authority. It's a fundamental mechanism the colony absolutely needs if it wants to survive as a free society.
Now, things get real. Section 4, Day 3, the ultimate test.
Out of nowhere, a massive storm wrecks part of the colony, and the leader steps up and makes this super dramatic announcement. This is an emergency. Cancel the next election and let me make all decisions alone until I say the crisis is over. And you know what? Some terrified settlers actually want to agree with this. This is the ultimate test.
It perfectly highlights the genuine historical danger of a temporary suspension of rights. Because, as the curriculum notes, principles matter the most when it's incredibly tempting to just give them up.
But the fifth graders can't just yell no way. They have to mount a rigorous, well-thought-out defense of their colony. They're required to formulate a strict four-step response. 1. They must state their decision clearly. 2. Name at least 2 applicable principles from the previous days. 3. Explain the explicit danger of abandoning those principles. And 4. Suggest a way to handle the emergency without throwing away their core values. I mean, that is some high-level critical thinking for a 10-year-old.
When we look at the teacher's model answer for this scenario, we see exactly how a strong student response should be structured. They have to articulate that canceling the election strips away the people's voice and totally removes that crucial check on power. They can totally suggest that representatives give the leader extra help for a short fixed amount of time, sure, but the election absolutely must happen. The vital lesson here is that giving up principles out of fear, that's exactly how a free colony loses its freedom.
Which leads us nicely to our final section, grading principled reasoning. What's really brilliant about the grading rubric here is that the kids aren't just graded on picking a single right answer or magically guessing the correct form of government. No, they're graded on their ability to actually apply principles. Did they successfully balance safety with protected freedoms? And honestly, most importantly, did they hold up under pressure? Did they stick to their principles during a crisis, or did they just cave and abandon them? It's all about assessing the actual process of their civic reasoning.
And that brings us to the capstone reflection prompt. This is what forces the students to prove they truly internalized that patience framework we talked about earlier. They're asked, give one example where the easy or popular choice would have meant giving up a principle, and explain why that mattered. They have to look back at the entire 3 days, identify a moment where taking the easy way out would have compromised their values, and explain why standing firm was the right call. It's really about locking in that long-term understanding.
So that leaves us with a final, pretty provocative thought. We've just seen how these fifth graders are taught to recognize a power grab disguised as an emergency. We've seen how they are trained to balance order with freedom. But what about us? If a true crisis hit today and the popular choice was to surrender our checks and balances for a little bit of temporary safety, could you pass this fifth grade test under pressure? Would you hold to your principles, or would you abandon them? Definitely something we should all be thinking about. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.